Have you ever seen those posts that go like 5 habits of highly successful people or 7 things all millionaires have in common? We've all seen them, and if we're being honest with ourselves, we probably read every one of them when they pop up on our feed. Because who doesn't want to know how to become more successful? We think that there must be some kind of secret formula out there that we just haven't stumbled upon yet. If only we knew what it was. But here's what most of those articles don't tell you. He didn't build Apple. He didn't come up with the iPhone or Mac computers. Look, we're not suggesting that you copy someone else's success, but you can use it as a guidepost to help you navigate your own journey. Both were founded by college dropouts in the early 90s. Both sold computer services, and both experienced tremendous growth in the late 90s. One of the main reasons why so many people fail to achieve success is because they do and learn from their own mistakes. They're always looking for shortcuts, hacks, and magic bullets. But they don't want to put in the hard work of learning from scratch. What's worse is that they don't even want to acknowledge that they're making mistakes. But he quickly realized that there was already a lot of competition in this space. So he decided to expand his business to sell music CDs as well. Here's the takeaway. Don't be afraid to ask for help or advice. There's a famous quote that goes, "Show me who your friends are and I will tell you who you are." Just be aware of the influence that your social circle has on your life, and make sure it's a positive influence. You can do this by making an effort to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you are in different areas. You'll be able to learn from their experiences and broaden your own perspective. Just be careful not to get too caught up in the rat race of trying to one-up each other all the time. The goal isn't to feel bad about yourself, but rather to learn and grow as an individual. This is essentially the idea that the people we spend time with have a profound influence on our attitudes, values, and behaviors. This concept is supported by multiple studies, including one published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, found that people become more like their close friends over time. We all have biases, blind spots, and areas where we simply lack expertise. So don't be afraid to reach out to others and learn from their experiences. After all, they say that it takes a village to raise a child, but it only takes one mentor to change a life. Again, not the best idea since there was even more competition in the music industry, but he kept experimenting until he landed on a product that had less competition, books, and the rest is history. Of course, not every decision Amazon makes turns out to be a winner, but at least they're willing to learn from their mistakes and adapt accordingly. So be open-minded, be curious, and be eager to learn from others. In the words of Maya Angelou, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. Don't complain. Change. It's a choice. Today, you're going to be awesome. They'd rather blame external factors like the economy or their boss or their spouse. Share with us the insights you've gained and how you plan to use them moving forward. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more insightful videos like this. Thanks for watching and see you next time. In fact, psychologists peg this phenomenon as one of the 7 deadly sins of human behavior, which is the sin of pride. When we're too proud to admit that we're wrong, we end up missing out on a huge opportunity to grow and learn. But when the dot-com bubble burst, Amazon quickly pivoted to focus on e-commerce, while Microsoft stayed focused on software. Have you been guilty of this as well? More importantly, what are you doing to prevent it from happening in the future? Now let's continue. And it's precisely this attitude of lifelong learning that separates the successful from the non-successful. As author Morgan Housel puts it, if you want to improve the quality of your decisions, you have to try to double the amount of bad decisions you make. The key is to be willing to experiment and take risks, but also to learn from your own experience and adjust accordingly. As a result, Amazon's revenue plummeted 90% from its peak, while Microsoft actually saw revenue increase. Now, obviously, this is a very simplified version of what happened with both companies, but what you really want to take away from this example is that there are multiple paths to success, but ultimately different paths require different skill sets to navigate. In other words, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, learn from the successes of others to gain insight on what has worked in the past and how you can apply those lessons to your own life. Ask yourself, were there any key moments in their story that stood out to you? Did they make any big mistakes along the way? Was there a turning point that made their success possible? The answers will depend on who you're talking about, but that's why it's so important to study multiple success stories, so that you can begin to see patterns emerge. He simply took an existing company and led it in a new direction. Sure, he's done a pretty good job at it too. But do you know what would have happened if he had tried to take the same approach with a completely different company? He probably wouldn't have been as successful. That's because he learned from the successes of Apple's past. But he's still very much a product of the present. The reason why these lists are so easy to find is because a lot of people follow them. So if everyone knows the rules of highly successful people, then how come everyone isn't a millionaire? In fact, how come most people struggle to stay afloat? There are even studies to back this up. For example, 62% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck expect their financial situation to get worse over the next 12 months. That's a pretty bleak outlook, especially when you consider that the US is one of the wealthiest countries in the world. So the truth is, while reading about habits of highly successful people is great to learn what works, it is also important to take a step back and look at what doesn't work, and learn from that. You see, life is complicated enough as it is, and the last thing you need to do is add to that complexity by trying to force yourself into a mold that may not fit. This is what most people already do, which is why they end up right back where they started. They keep reading and listening to the same stories over again, but they never truly digest the information. It's important to remember that no two people are alike. And while someone else's success story might inspire you, it won't necessarily apply to your own life. Why? Because the first step to learning from someone else's success is understanding the context of their achievement. Instead, what you really want to do is cut through all the noise and simplify your path to success by doing two things. 1. Learn from the successes of others. And 2. Let their mistakes teach you wisdom. Now, let's start off with 1. Learning from the successes of others. For example, Tim Cook became CEO of Apple when Steve Jobs resigned. And that brings us to the second part of learning from the successes of others, which is to look for patterns. Let me give you an example. Take two of the biggest tech companies in the world, Microsoft and Amazon. So before we move on, we want you to take a moment to reflect on your own life. The truth is, no one knows everything, and even the most successful people in the world have made their fair share of mistakes. Take Amazon, for example. When Jeff Bezos first started the company, his goal was to create an online bookstore. Now, we could give you dozens of examples like this, but we'll spare you the pain and move on to our final point. In fact, we're going to take this a step further and suggest that you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you are. Of course, that doesn't mean you should ditch all your old friends and start hanging around with a bunch of egg. Remember, we all have something to offer, and everyone has valuable insights that can help us become better at what we do. All right, now it's your turn. We challenge you to take what you've learned today and apply it to your own life.